Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to things that Americans do that the rest of the world don't do. Now, this is going to be interesting because there are a few things that America does that are quite unique to it. For example, the sales tax thing. As far as I'm aware, like every other country I've been to, the price for, if you want to buy something in a store, the price is the price. So what you see on the tag, that's all you pay. That's it. Whereas America, you have to, and it's not just the same sales tax in the whole country. It varies state by state. So I've always wondered, like, why is that? Like, why don't they just calculate the sales tax and include that on the price tag so that I don't have to mentally, punch in a calculator to figure out what I'm gonna spend on my stuff. But there must be a reason behind it, so I'm hoping this video is gonna touch on that. Also, another thing is the red cups thing. I've noticed that in a lot of movies, when there's like a frat party or something, the students will be like drinking out of like red cups. I've always thought, why is that? So I'm hoping this video is gonna touch on at least those two things. Should be interesting. Let's do it.
If you don't like America, why don't you get out?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things Americans do that the rest of the world doesn't.
You're 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta call your parents.
It's time. It's time.
Don't wait another minute for Claritin.
Do you do it every day?
Yeah.
For
medical
this list,
commercials.
we're going
That's
over the
another
things
one.
that are more common in the United States of America than in most other countries. While some of them are present elsewhere, they're not quite as widespread as in the US. And no judgment. This is supposed to be a lighthearted list after all, so keep a sense of humor and know that it's all in good fun. If there's a particular Americanism that our list didn't cover, please do tell us in the comments.
I really hope they
Number
cover
10,
the two that I mentioned.
refer to the USA as America.
What? Is that Mount Rushmore? That has to be fake. Surely Mount Rushmore doesn't open up like that.
Outside of the United States of America, referring to the country as America is much less commonplace. After all, there are two entire continents called America, comprising like 35 distinct nations. Referring to only one country on one of those continents as America too is really confusing for
But
anyone
I
who
call
doesn't live there.
the
From
USA
this
America.
day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Calling it the US, USA, the United States, or just the States is much more common in the rest of the world.
Probably.
Even so, everyone still calls its residents
I don't
Americans.
know about that
which
though.
is
I actually think here it's more common to refer to the US as America. I really think so.
isn't confusing at all.
You can't say it, but you know it's true.
Number 9. Have pharmacies that sell groceries.
Yeah, this one I've
In
never
most
seen
of the world,
here.
pharmacies sell exactly what their name implies, pharmaceuticals. While you will see tangentially related items like grooming products or hygienic things like toothbrushes, pharmacies don't usually carry food or toys. But in the US, that's much more common. The country is all about the all-in-one experience. Not only will dedicated grocery stores have pharmacies built in, but pharmacies will also carry groceries. Granted, the selection isn't always great, but if you're desperate for milk and the grocery store is closed or you just don't feel like crossing the street to get there, you can get some. While most of the world still limits drugstores to drugs and self-care products, we have a feeling this one might catch on. Number 8.
But doesn't that create a lot more work for the people that work in the pharmacy? Because rather than just dealing with medication, they've got to make sure the milk is fresh, the vegetables aren't rotten and stuff. It's a lot more stuff to juggle. I'd rather they just focus on the meds.
Vote before they can drink. Worldwide, the age at which a person can legally drink alcohol is most commonly 18.
Yeah.
The age usually considered to be adulthood, though it is even earlier in some countries. The voting age on a global scale is also generally 18, for similar reasons, although of course there are exceptions.
The Voting Rights Act of 1970 lowered the voting age to 18 for national elections, and the 26th Amendment made the change to 18 permanent for all elections.
And 18 is where it has stayed for the past 50 years.
However, the United States requires young adults to wait 3 years after being able to vote before legally being allowed to drink at 21.
That's interesting.
This was enacted during the 1980s to prevent alcohol-related driving accidents.
This law has been an abysmal failure. It hasn't reduced or eliminated drinking. It has simply driven it underground, behind closed doors, into the most risky and least manageable of settings.
While it helped in the short term, ultimately it hasn't really stopped teenagers from drinking.
It never could.
The result is that many people, both inside and outside the U.S., question the logic of why an 18-year-old American can decide who forms the government but not get buzzed.
Yep.
The reality is everyone drinks before they turn 21. That's why when you go out for your first legal drink, you have to react with that faux surprise like you've never heard of alcohol before. Ooh, what does this alcohol taste like? Oh, it's unusual. Oh, this is true.
Number 7.
Yeah, I think to join the military, if it's anything like the UK, it's probably, 16 or 18? If you can join the military, the army at 18, let's say, you should be able to drink at 18 too. Do you guys agree with that?
Tip service personnel.
All right, everybody cough up some green for the little lady.
Ah, tipping. I remember this scene from Reservoir
Come on,
Dogs.
throw in a buck.
I don't tip.
You don't tip?
No, I don't believe in it.
While the concept of tipping waitstaff or other people in the service industry is known worldwide, few countries have embraced the concept to the degree the U.S. has.
Labor movements declare the practice undemocratic, and anti-tipping legislation was enacted across several states. But restaurants and rail operators like the Pullman Company embraced tipping because it allowed them, among other things, to hire recently freed slaves without having to pay them.
Many workers, particularly in the restaurant industry, rely on gratuities to get by, in part because laws allow managers to pay sub-minimum wages.
But change those laws. Why should it be legal to pay someone, below minimum wage?
Is to tipped workers. However, in various other countries, tipping is seen as insulting. They're just doing their jobs after all.
Each year, Americans spend $40 billion on tips. That's more than we spend on foreign aid and more than we spend on gambling. Wow. And like gambling, it's not entirely clear that tipping makes any sense in the first place.
While some countries' workers certainly appreciate it, it isn't expected like it is in the U.S. Mostly because employees are paid a high enough baseline salary that they don't need tips to survive.
Restaurant owners still pay their servers less than minimum wage, turning what used to be a bribe into an obligation that makes the end of every meal suck.
Number 6.
Yeah, I know that it's mainly the service industry that gets tipped, but I used to be a teacher and a paralegal, so I never got tipped. I'm not saying that, they're the same type of work, but I worked very hard in both of those jobs and I never once got a tip. But then again, I guess if you're being paid less than minimum wage, you need the tips to survive. I understand that too. I just think that paying someone less than minimum wage should not be legal. What do you guys think about that? It just seems like it's a bit exploitative.
Obsess over the military.
And I think I speak for the rest of the WWE. I certainly speak for myself. I would like to say thank you to all our men and women who choose to don the uniform of the United States military.
The American military is probably the best in the world, as it should be, since it's also one of the best funded militaries in the world.
It is
in
the
fact,
best funded.
The U.S. spends several times more on their military than their nearest competitor, China. What's more, there are more than a few American citizens who have a higher than average fascination with their own military and its culture.
I thank you as your commander-in-chief because you inspire me. Your willingness to serve, to step forward at a time of war and say, send me, is the reason the United States stays strong and free.
While other countries certainly appreciate their troops, you don't, see as many people wearing camouflage as a legitimate fashion statement. Likewise, you don't see movies made elsewhere that glorify the military to the degree that the U.S. does.
Do me a favor.
I need to watch this.
Tell my children I love them very much. All right, you alien assholes! In the words of my generation, up yours!
You
of the American enthusiasm is certainly rooted in patriotism. Still, it may also be a reaction to an increasingly anti-military sentiment that has popped up over the last several decades.
No war, okay? No war, okay?
I love these little snippets of like shows that they put in these videos. Okay.
Oh, here you go, boys. These will help you protest. It's good to see that you care about peace, boys, okay?
Number 5, work too much. Americans
heard
are
this.
workaholics, at least compared to basically every other country in the world. The majority of Americans work more than 40 hours a week.
Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, the conventional answer is that this attitude towards work makes the American economy the envy of the world. America is a hectic, turbocharged system that builds, destroys, rebuilds, all at warp speed.
They also tend to lack many of the things the rest of the world takes for granted, like paid holidays, as well as sick and parental leave. Research has shown that happier, less stressed workers do better at their jobs. Iceland even recently tried a 4-day work week that proved wildly successful.
There's lots of other benefits to a 4-day working week. It's not just the it's not just the mental health and economy, good for the economy. It's also environmental benefits too. Evidence looks like when we're commuting less as a result of a 4-day week, that brings down emissions. Also, energy consumption goes down. So this is a policy that's win-win for the environment, for workers, for employers. What's not to like about it?
Several European countries take long breaks for lunch. While the American drive is admirable, grind culture becomes problematic when it costs workers their mental health and well-being.
It does.
Number 4.
Yeah, to be honest, that one, I'm not sure if it's going to get any better anytime soon. Although countries are trialing the 4-day work week, a lot of companies have turned to like automation to get rid of jobs. They've given jobs to AI and things like that as opposed to people. So I'm not sure if it's going to get any better. But yeah, I do think there should be a cap on how many hours you work a week. It's just not good to just work. You need a break.
Put sales tax on everything.
Sales tax is paid when you buy something, and the business
Yes,
you
here
purchased
we
your
go,
goods from
sales
sends that
tax.
money to the government. There are 2 types of sales tax: general sales tax and excise taxes. General sales tax is a tax levied on most goods you buy.
So that's VAT here in the
Excise taxes are taxes levied only on certain items.
Most countries enact a value-added tax, or VAT, on goods or services purchased within their borders. These taxes are collected from every person in the supply chain, from the distributors to the consumers. The United States is one of the few to use sales tax, which not only vary wildly from state to state, but are only enacted after a purchase has been made.
The state treasury depends on sales taxes to pay for road repairs, education, and medical care for children, seniors, and the poor.
They're also not listed in the initial price, which can leave foreign visitors and many Americans
Confused.
scratching their head as to why they're being charged more than the price on the product. Better or worse?
Why have they done this angle?
You decide. It's certainly more confusing.
What's the advice then? If you're going to buy a big ticket item, where's the cheapest sales tax?
Well, you can go online and look at all the sales tax rates for different cities, and if you look at one dealership or one, Best Buy or something like that, you can find the different zip codes and look at the sales tax rates and just see how much that'll take off, and then take your family out for a nice night.
There you go.
But then you've got to drive, if you have to drive 50 miles to get $10 off, you've not really made any savings, have you? I wonder, would you prefer, guys, if there was one flat sales tax nationwide, or keep things how they are now? I guess because you're used to it, I don't think a lot of you will want to change it, but would it make sense to just have the same thing applied?
Number 3, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
In many parts of the United States, school children, and adults in some settings, are expected to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. This is an expression that they will be loyal to the USA, and is usually performed daily while looking at the nation's flag.
Wow,
Back then, in 1892, when it was written by Francis Bellamy, Bellamy was a Baptist minister, and in conjunction with a magazine called The Youth's Companion, he wrote this, at that time, 23-word Pledge of Allegiance.
Citizens of other countries might respect or salute their flag and country, but a daily affirmation? Not in most places. The Pledge of Allegiance has been the subject of controversy and criticism, both from outside the U.S. and from within. Some see it as indoctrination. Others find its mentions of God problematic, and still others think it was simply written to sell merch. Whatever the case,
Merch.
it is not a common thing in the rest of the world.
But the bottom line is, we all look different, sound different, but we are all on the same team.
Number 2.
I don't know. I kind of like it. It's, I think it's a positive thing to take pride in one's country, to foster a bit of, patriotism. But at the same time, I can see why some people would say doing it every day might be a bit much. To be honest, though, I don't really see an issue with it. I think it's pretty cool.
Go bankrupt from healthcare. Medical costs are the cause of over 60% of all bankruptcies in the United States.
In 2017, 1/3 of the money raised on GoFundMe went towards medical campaigns. And the site raises $650 million a year for more than 250,000 medical campaigns.
Americans experience a variety of unexpected charges while getting much-needed care, from surprise bills to being charged for riding in an ambulance.
According to one study, 71% of all ambulance providers do not take the patient's insurance.
What?
That same study found that 79% of patients who took an ambulance could get a surprise bill.
But why wouldn't they take the patient's insurance? If they're medically insured, why wouldn't they? Surely they're legally obligated to take it.
With an average total around $450.
In some
To ride
parts
in
of
an
the civilized
ambulance.
world, even seeing a medical bill can be an uncommon occurrence.
$500
Healthcare
bucks.
worldwide tends to be much more regulated than it is in the US. It's either funded through taxes in a single-payer system or else through individual insurers who are more strictly monitored.
Other countries, they don't have this problem. Instead of every private insurance company negotiating with every healthcare provider, there's just this big list. Country, the central government, they go and they say, if you want to sell to us, to all of our people, then here's what you can charge for a checkup. Here's what you can charge for an MRI or a prescription for Lipitor.
Bottom line, while there can sometimes be extra charges, for most of the world, medical debt is basically unheard of, except in horror stories about the US.
Can't get a credit card. I can't buy a house. I don't see me ever being out of debt.
Before we get to our top pick,
man.
here are some.
Guys, would you prefer to keep your medical system as it is, or would you prefer an NHS-style system where you pay, I think it's between 7 and 9% of your annual income every month? I mean, so basically it works out to be about 7 or 8% every year of your annual income for the NHS, and then that's it. You don't have to pay any more. Like, everything else is covered apart from like cosmetic surgery. Would you prefer that, or would you rather keep what you have?
Some honorable mentions. Free refills. Restaurants will fill up glasses with even more drinks for free and with lots of ice.
To be honest, I
Throw
like
baby
ice.
showers. Many cultures see them as bad luck or in poor taste.
They've started to happen here more often though, baby showers. It's a boy! Yay!
Wear shoes indoors. Sure, not every American does this, but it's still considered weird in a lot of countries.
Yeah, I could never, man. It's just, if you've got a carpet, there's a high chance you're going to get dirt on it.
Advertise drugs to consumers. Pharmaceutical companies' clout allows this, annoying basically everyone but them.
These ads are legal in most countries, but in the US, they're everywhere. On average, 80 of them air every hour on American television.
Ask your doctor. An hour.
My doctor told me. Use red plastic cups for alcohol.
Yeah, the red
on
cups.
these for every American party.
Here we go.
I mean, they do look cool on the table, but why though? Can someone explain?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, use the imperial measurement system.
Can you explain to me?
Yes.
How the country that can send men and hopefully women to the moon.
Yeah, all and beyond.
Still are in gallons and inches. I mean, the entire world is metric. I do not understand this.
There are 3 countries in the world that
It's hard
don't
to
use
argue.
the metric system: Myanmar, Liberia, and the United States. Objectively, metric is the less arbitrary measurement system since everything goes by tens. Even Britain and Commonwealth countries have converted.
The point is, the US system has always been a little more accessible than metric.
Sure, stacking up 12 thumb widths to make a foot, that's still kind of weird, but it's not so weird that we're clamoring to change it.
Although admittedly, they do still use measurements like feet and inches casually.
So now I can't ask a distance when I visit another country. I'm like, how far is that? They're like, that's 500 kilometers. I'm not in the Olympics.
So why hasn't the US converted?
It's so much simpler. 1 centimeter, all right, it's about this much. 100 centimeters is a meter. 1,000 meters is a kilometer. You know, it's just so much simpler, right? 1 gram, 1,000 grams is a kilogram. 1,000 kilograms is a ton. Like, I don't know how you convert ounces and thumb widths and what else? Shillings, and I don't know what else is in there.
I'll give you one guess.
In the Imperial.
Would you say it's because of money? Because money is definitely a big factor. Converting to a whole new system of measurement is expensive.
Yeah,
Other factors include a need for control and stability of the US. So, inertia, basically. Why change when you don't need to? And you know what your mom says? If all the other countries jumped off a bridge, would the US do it too? Or something like that.
A 2015 Rasmussen poll asked Americans if we should switch to the metric system and adopt Celsius as our main temperature scale. 64% said no, while 21% said yes, and the remaining 15% was undecided. So it looks like we're perfectly fine with being different.
Do you agree with our picks?
Fair enough.
Check out this other
super fun video. Really enjoyed it. Really well made. I loved the humor, the little clips from the TV shows. It really added to it. The questions that I asked, you know, I really would like you guys to answer them if possible. You know, would you rather keep the current medical system you guys have where you find your own insurance or you get it through an employer, I believe, or would you just rather have, you know, the IRS take 8% of your annual income and that means you are covered? Like, that's it. Everything is covered. Ambulance rides, hospital visits, you know, childbirth, everything is covered. I'd really love to know. I think I'll probably do a poll on it, maybe midweek or something. And just a lot of the things, like the metric system one, I guess yes, because you're going to have to do so much changing and modification of things that there's probably, you know, a good amount of people who wouldn't mind switching, but it's the hassle of relearning a new system and things like that. I get why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If people are, you know, living their lives, you know, comfortably enough, why change something like that? Really interesting video though. Let me know you guys' thoughts and answer the questions that I asked. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.